circular one. Plastics, for example, have been central in consumer, car, electronic, as well as the medical industries. When you look at traditional energy sources, they've enabled the creation of the modern economy, and they still power our lives. But with decarbonization as the new goal, what will be done with the old infrastructure? How can we really, truly optimize new systems and manage, as we heard, very complex transitions? How can we encourage business growth while minimizing at the same time negative environmental impacts? So to address all of this and more, I'm happy to invite here on stage our panelists, Abdul Rahman Al-Atiq, the SVP for Corporate Affairs, Abu Dhabi Polymers Company Limited, UAE, Sebastian Arbola, the Chief Executive Officer, Middle East, South and Central Asia and Turkey, Angers, France, Avi Garbau, Environmental Advocate, Patagonia, USA, Sarah Marshall, Director, Sustainability, Nova Chemicals, Canada, and Gunter Pauli, Entrepreneur and Author, Colombia. Welcome. Please join me up here on stage. Thank you so much. We could just get straight into it. We've had some of the arguments already set up. Perhaps I can start, Abdurrahman. What are some of the major developments in the management of plastics themselves and recycling that have happened in the last few years that you really think are moving the needle forward on sustainability?
Yes, so I would like to share, first of all, thank you for having me here, and it's an honor to be here with my fellow panelists on the stage. When we look at the recent developments on plastics and waste management at large, one was regulatory, where traditional routes of waste in general, which used to go into certain countries in terms of export, got restricted. We've seen that happening in China and also beyond that. It was a very strong message that this is a global responsibility and we cannot cut corners. It's no longer acceptable that waste is transported from one area of the world to the other just because it's a cheaper solution or it's causing an issue in the environment where it started as. That's one. Second, from a technology point of view, we are seeing now an emergence of chemical recycling. So chemical recycling, in a nutshell, is basically taking back plastic waste back to its original molecules. And with that, then you have endless opportunities to create new products, plastics, but also beyond, fuel as such. At this stage, given that it's a new development, the commercial aspect of it is yet to achieve its results, but it's looking very promising. So these are the two developments that we see in the market of plastics waste management. From our side in Borouge, as a responsible petrochemicals company, we strongly believe that in order to achieve a zero waste plastic circular economy as a result, it requires concerted efforts and actions by governments, industry, society, and also consumers.
Sebastien, what is Angers doing for decarbonization? What are some of the most promising technologies that you see from your perspective?
So just to set the scene, thank you for having me today. Very pleased to be sharing this roundtable with you today. First, Engie, as a traditional utility company, we are at the heart of this revolution because maybe you don't know, but our business is responsible for 40% of the emission of CO2 worldwide. So it's huge. And of course, when we speak about trying to find better ways to bring electricity, to use electricity, we have to be all conscious that we have to do effort for ourselves, what we have been doing, signing the Paris Agreement, trying to ramp up the renewable in our mix from 25 to 60% by 2030. But also we have to help our clients. And the clients, yesterday, when they wanted to procure energy, electricity, water, it was through procurement team. Today, it is at the C-suite level. It's a very important issue. When we speak about recycling, we have first to think about not spending, I would say, too much energy, so saving energy. It's even, I would say, more stronger than recycling energy. So we are helping a lot, I would say, our clients, communities, cities, industries, to save and to better, I would say, use their energy. Just wanted to flag one example, because it's a recent one, but it's quite interesting. Ohio State University asked us for 50 years, basically, to master and provide energy, the cold, the hot water, the district cooling, the heating in the winter, and also electricity on the performance, I would say, based contracts. For 50 years, we can revamp, I would say, equipments. We can do retrofitting of the buildings. We can put some smart appliances. We can change the bulbs. And all this for 50 years, it makes a sense. This complex turnaround will not be done in 2-3 years. It has to be done in a long-term pathway. And it's exactly what we've heard in the precedent, I would say, roundtable. It's important that this complex alchemy will be supported by public and also private organization.
Avi, what kind of material innovations do you do?
So, first of all, again, thank you as well for having me. One of the interesting aspects, I think, about Patagonia, and I'm sure a lot of companies have this as well, is the majority of our environmental footprint, certainly when we think about carbon as well as other metrics, comes from our materials, the foundation, of course, of our products. And so we deploy materials engineers. We've got a team of developers, a team of materials innovators who are all focused on the mission of Patagonia as a business, which is to be in business to save the home planet. And so we've got a team of folks focused on new material innovations, all of whom do their work through the lens of environmental protection and what kind of the end-of-life strategy might be. To that point, one of the things that we are always thinking of is when we create a product, what is going to be the end-of-life result of that product. Now, some of the innovations, it's quite interesting, just to give you an example, not of necessarily of something within Patagonia, but another company that we support, a small startup called Borreo. And I mention it in part because it gives you a sense of what's possible when it comes to materials. Borreo is just a small company that looked at a problem, certainly in our oceans, and began to collect discarded fish nets that were in South America in various communities and kind of littering those beaches. They now are using that discarded material to create recyclable content, which is now in glasses frames and on bicycles and on skateboards, and in fact finding its way into some of the materials that Patagonia uses as well.
Sarah, what about Nova Chemicals? What are some of the steps that your company's taking in this space?
Well, thank you for having me. Nova Chemicals is a...
We can't hear you clearly.
Oh. How's this?
Much better.
Thank you all for having me today. Nova Chemicals is a petrochemical company based in Canada, and we, together with the North American plastics industry, have set an ambitious goal that 100% of plastic packaging will be recycled and recovered by 2040, meaning none going to landfill. To achieve this goal, we recognize we need to improve 6 key elements of the circular economy. Number one, there has to be collaboration across the value network, from brand owners to recyclers, cities and communities to citizens. Secondly, collection is a very important part of the program. Improving access to multi-residential families, rural communities has a ways to go in North America. And along with that comes consumer education. Of course, if the consumer's not placing recyclables in the bin, it's very difficult for us to get those back. And in North America, we believe there's an opportunity to increase the recyclable content by over 50%, just through that one element alone. Advances in sorting in our municipal recycling facilities are necessary, mechanical and chemical recycling advances as well, and finally, economic incentivization. And all of this is independent of policy. So there's over $20 billion worth of work to do in North America to achieve this vision in 2040. As Nova Chemicals, we're working hard on design for recyclability, improvements in recycled content in our products, and particularly in the innovation of chemical recycling technologies, where we can use the value of plastics again and again through breaking down plastics to their constituent parts and repolymerizing them to new plastics.
Gunther, I'd like you to perhaps take some of what you've heard and give us your perspective and some kind of context to ground it in. You've been called the Che Guevara of sustainability, the Steve Jobs of sustainability as well. You've also published 20 books. So to save us all from reading those 20 books, could you give us your perspective on the debate that you've heard?
You know, we have to go back to Einstein, who said, if you don't get the results you expected and you think that doing more of the same will get you the results, then you're stupid. We are behaving as a humanity, as a stupid humanity, because we continue trying to do less bad, whereas we urgently have to start doing good. So when we all agree that stealing less is stealing, polluting less is polluting. You know, we have some ethical values to put forward in saying that we have to stop trying to save the world. We have to put the Earth back on its evolutionary path. That's where we need to go for. And just by doing a bit of recycling here and there, it's been tried for 40 years. It doesn't produce results.
So what do we have to do? I mean,
well,
one is you're saying change the paradigm of the conversation.
Well, first of all, we have to change, there are two things we have to do. First of all, we have to change the business model. As long as we have a business model with core business focusing on core competences, we will never be able to get out of the straitjacket, and therefore will never be able to get the results we need. I'll give you an example. The world's oceans are full of microplastics, full. We have no clue how to take it out. So we need to put the science in place. We put the science in place. We have a network of 3,000 scientists. And we put the scientists in place, and they designed seaweed curtains that are able to absorb microplastics. Of course, this is a cost. No one is going to pay for it. I can't come to you and say, would you mind paying $5 billion and you $1 billion? And you say, no, it's not my responsibility. It's a global responsibility. So my response is, we have to design the business models that will work. So what we're doing, like in Morocco, we're placing out the seaweed curtains. We harvest the seaweeds, 50% stay in the water as a carbon sink, and the other 50% is capturing the microplastics. The seaweeds are turned into a biogas, and the residual solid has the microplastics, which we separate, and then we do a pyrolysis. We now have two cash flows. We have phosphates from the seaweeds, biogas from the seaweeds, and we clean up the ocean. What we need to do is really start to have a creative approach to the next generation of business models. And I think if we get to the new business models, we can make a hell of a difference very fast.
So with all the business, with all the models that we've heard from all of our panelists here, do you think they're too micro-focused and not effective enough, or do you think there needs to be a complete rethink? And please, I don't want to speak on anyone's behalf here. Feel free to jump in and have a debate with Gunther. I mean, is what we heard effective, or is it too much on a micro level or on a business model standpoint?
It is totally ineffective. It is with the best efforts and the best intentions. But, you know, when you're pouring millions of tons of plastics in the ocean, you can't micromanage it. You have to have a plan to have 1 million square kilometers of seaweeds farmed around the world to capture the microplastics. And that is not very difficult. Corn farming in America is 4.5 million square kilometers. We can do those things. We have the means to do it, but we don't think big enough. It's too much, too small, too late, too long term.
Sarah, do you agree or disagree?
What I would definitely agree with is the need for new business models and collaboration to address the extensive issue with plastics in the environment. But what I'd add to the panel is that the plastics industry, brands, and other collaborators are stepping up to the plate. In 2019, we founded the Alliance to End Plastic Waste. Nova Chemicals is one of over 40 members of the Alliance. It is a CEO-led organization with the aim to raise $1.5 billion in capital funding to stop plastic waste from entering the environment in the areas of highest leakage worldwide. To date, there's over $1 billion in funding available, and we are starting up projects to look for waste management infrastructure solutions so that that plastic does not enter the environment.
That seems pretty important and effective.
But we've made the analysis. I'm bringing my book out in 8th of June at the World Ocean Day in Tokyo with the Japanese government. We've calculated we need to just to take over the next 100 years to take the plastics out of the ocean we have already put in, we need $25 billion. So don't give me $1 billion, I need 25 billion. And we will raise the money from vision funds and the likes. I'm going from here to Saudi Arabia. We can't do it with $1 billion. We have to have real money on the table. But the real money must be backed up, not by philanthropy and generosity. It has to be backed up by new business models.
Abdurrahman?
I'd like to add that, yes, I agree that the scale is big. It's a global issue. To solve it requires a lot of resources, a lot of money, new ways of thinking, innovation, all of that. But we also cannot shy away from that, even if we get to a stage of getting everything that is out of the ocean, plastics and beyond, by the way, because at the end of the day, we know that what's polluting the ocean is waste at large. It's behavior, it's regulations, it's wrong designs of products that are getting these products in the environment, where they actually have a lot of value to be reused and recycled.
Sebastian?
For the issue of plastic, I don't know so much, but I would take away for our industry, which is also important, I would say, producing energy, that yes, we have to think bigger, and certainly if you want to build, I would say, a new industry based on renewable, plus maybe, I would say, production of green hydrogen, and this circular economy would kick off in the end, using the old, I would say, plant with this new hydrogen. Certainly, we have to think bigger, and we have to pour trillions and align, I would say, the policies. Just from one market to the other market, the electricity grid are generally not connected. So you mean, we are far, far, far below, I would say, what would be the necessity to basically first connect and then pour in very large, I would say, projects in terms of renewable, and especially in this region on solar.
If I can just add a couple things. I probably agree with everything Gunter has said, and let me just address some things that, or I should say some perspectives that we have at Patagonia with respect to how we conduct our business. The first point I'd like to make is we actually eschew the notion of sustainability at Patagonia. It may sound odd here at Abu Dhabi Sustainability Week, but the notion that you can be a sustainable business is in fact a canard. It's a lie. You cannot produce anything in a fully sustainable way. We can aspire to it. We can try to be more sustainable. But to suggest that, that you have a perfect circularity in the economy or something that is indeed fully sustainable, I think is a bit of a myth. And so at Patagonia, we challenge ourselves at all times to be more responsible. And that is in many ways the way we refer to ourselves, but we don't kid ourselves in terms of the perfection, if you will, of any of our products or processes. The other thing I guess I would like to add in terms of a new business model is as long as profit overrides purpose, if you will, and we have shareholder primacy really drowning out all of the other communal interests, including environmental protection, I think companies are, in this respect, doomed to fail. Patagonia is by no means perfect, a long way from it, as I think most companies are, but we are a B corporation, B standing for benefit in the US, which I think does have a different kind of corporate model in terms of accounting for community interests, worker standards, environmental protection, et cetera, and putting those really on par with production, output, and profit. And I think those are the sorts of changes that, at least at the margins, are needed when we're going to aspire to improve sustainability.
Gunther, on the point about business models, which now you've mentioned a few times already in what you said, needs to be addressed. How can we do it when profit precedes purpose in most entities?
So to me, the number one is you have to choose your shareholders. Who's your shareholder? If you have a shareholder who is a hedge fund, of course you're going to get stuck with people who are going to pressure you to put profit before anything else.
But you can't always do that.
No, I think today in the world of black rocks and so on, you don't have a lot of freedom when you are a family-controlled enterprise. Some of you may not be aware that I'm the chairman of the largest biochemical company in Europe, which is called Novamont. And as chairman of Novamont, we have said we will start from the soil, we will create polymers that will never compete with food from the soil, and we will make certain it gets back to the soil. That's our philosophy. We've been it for 20 years. We've invested about $1 billion now. And it's only from 7 shareholders who have agreed with us to be in it for 25 years. That's a very unique privilege. We don't take dividends. I mean, we're not B Corp, but we don't take dividends because we think that if the management knows how to get to these grand objectives for the earth, then we should have a 25-year perspective for the shareholders. And by the way, we have agreed we will never build a green field. We will only build reconverted petrochemical facilities that are not competitive anymore to facilitate the petrochemical industry to get out into the bioeconomy. So I think shareholder choice is absolutely one. 2 is you need to see the whole circularity of your business. That means if we are in polymers coming from plant-based, the plant, we as business have the responsibility to organize it back into the soil. It's not anyone else's responsibility, it's ours. So what have we done? We create strange partnerships. Our main partner in Italy, we're an Italian company, is Coldiretti. Coldiretti is an association of 1.4 million farmers. And our goal is to increase the revenue of the farmer. And how do we do that? By innovations. Our main raw material, as you may not know, is a thistle. You know thistles, cardoons? It's considered a weed. I mean, we normally spray glyphosates in it. And what we do is we harvest the thistles, turn them into, today, a $300 million business.
But what if some companies can't have full circularity? Like we just heard Patagonia say that.
No, but I think we can get them there.
So what do we need to do to get Patagonia there? Because they don't have the full, there's no full sustainability, right? That's what you just said, that they eschew that notion, because you can't have full circularity with some of the materials that are produced. Avi, help me.
You can aspire to it.
I think we can. I'm, of course, often told that I'm a dreamer, but I think we can, on the condition that we decide we can. You know, the problem with psychology is that if you decide it's not possible, then it is not possible. We have to decide collectively that it is possible. Okay. And every business has the one clear concern. It's your existing capital layout. How do I transform the exit from my capital layout that I haven't amortized yet, for which I need to generate a cash flow? And that is where we need to have also innovative finance. So it's the shareholders, it's the soil to soil, the circularity all the way, and it is ensuring that you really have a financial system that allows you the exit of the old system.
We just have a few minutes left, unfortunately. I'd like to ask each of our panelists, starting with Sarah, just to offer a final perspective for us to take.
The final perspective I'd offer, from the diversity of views of the panel, we can't let perfection be the enemy of progress. worldwide plastics recycling rates are too low. So we need all approaches through sensible reduction, recycling technology, tremendous amount of innovation, new business models, collaboration. There's a space for bioplastics as well. So all of us need to come together to do our part to work towards a circular economy. And we believe at NOVA that there is hope to move away from plastic waste in the environment through these approaches.
Avi?
I guess the final thought I would have is I think it's critical for companies to assume responsibility for the entirety of their output. For a company like Patagonia, and I think this is for many companies as well, it's much easier to focus on your own owned and operated, or what's in your front yard. It is more difficult, more complex to assume responsibility, and environmental responsibility in particular, for your supply chain. And for us, and I think for many folks, we have the greatest potential to make environmental progress if we really expand our own sense of environmental responsibility to include those throughout our value and supply chain.
Sebastian?
At ENGIE, I would say that we are pretty optimistic for the midterm. I think by 2030, we will see, I would say, low cost of solar panel plus batteries that will make up for, I would say, the intermittency of solar energy. So I think for us, and for me in particular, the issue is really, I would say, the leadership around from now on until 2030 or 2035. What do we do with the coal plants? What do we do with our conventional plants? All the capital costs, I would say, that have been poured in this, I would say, all businesses. What do we do with it? It's an important thing. We can convert them to biomass, but of course we need some push and leadership from the markets. The issue with energy is that it's both a global issue, but local markets. All, I would say, the countries and cities have different, I would say, issues, bringing affordable, abundant, reliable, but also with some security of supply and sustainable energy. All of this needs to be tackled at the same level, but I would say for the future, producing electricity will be cheaper and cheaper, and soon, I'm sure we'll see excess, abundant, I would say, solar electricity that could be, I would say, the source of another circular economy with, for example, H2 or biogas.
Abdurrahman?
Yeah, I mean, from my side, I think we need to go back to what is sustainability. And it is all about the triple bottom line. It's about how we do things, concepts, projects, products that touch society positively, have an economic value, and also contributes to the environment. That, in its essence, is about a balance. At the end of the day, if we only look at one angle and not the other, it will not be sustainable. So I think that's one thing that we should always keep in mind. And from our side as companies and organizations, we focus on the innovation aspect, coming up with products that have a positive sustainability index that is a key factor in putting it out into the market. But also, as organization, we have a role to be on the ground to actually solve a lot of the problems that exist today. Yes, they might be small when you look at the context of the problem, but if every organization does something similar to what Project Stop did in Indonesia, which the Alliance to End Plastic Waste has joined, it will create results in my view. Yeah.
Gunther, final word?
Very short. Yes, perfection shouldn't get in the way of improvements, but vision with values will shape our future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you to our excellent panelists here for not holding back and suggesting and telling us their story. Thank you so much. Please, I'd like to, at this point, welcome His Excellency Ahmed Ali Al Sayah to say a few words.